We are in a golden and prosperous new era for JoJo fans. We now have a live running manga part back in development, and we just got an absolutely amazing spin-off, and we just recently had the adaptation of the Stone Ocean anime, which so many people absolutely loved or hated depending on who you ask. So, if you're a JoJo fiend who is absolutely clamoring and wanting something new to get your teeth into, do I have the series for you. Introducing Rauch. Rauch. I've heard it so many different ways. I don't know which one's the real one. Don't actually cancel me or whatever. Pushing this is far more important than me pronouncing it right. Created by incredible JoJo fan artist Arc Nemesis. Now, if you haven't seen this dude's work, it is unreal how he's able to capture Araki's style in such a masterful way that he's able to turn characters from other series into works of art that look so official you might believe Araki himself made them. And while there have been many people who have been able to capture Araki's art style, I think the main thing that impressed me about Arc Nemesis's work is the way they use coloring and shading. It is so spot on to the way Araki actually colors the JoJo manga and makes paintings that it actually blew me away. So when I heard that this artist was actually going to try and make their own manga and put it on Manga Plus, which is a platform where anyone can upload their own series, I was incredibly invested to see what they would be able to do, knowing their mastery of Araki's style. Now, obviously, that sounds like I'm gassing it up to a really high degree, but honestly, I think the quality is really evident. And many other people seem to agree with me, because this series actually won the #1 ranked spot the month it came out, which was actually last month in April. So now that chapter 2 is officially out, yes, it's officially out, which is partially the reason I'm making this video, you guys should definitely give it a read before you even get into my spiel about why I like the series and what makes it different from JoJo. If you guys want a purely blind experience, definitely read it for yourself and join in on the conversation and community building around this series as the months continue to go on and on. So now with all that pretense out of the way, let's get into why I think the series has a lot of potential and what I like about it so much and what makes it different from JoJo, because I know so many people are going to go into this thinking it's going to be a JoJo-esque thing, and the fact that it's not is actually probably my favorite part about it. Because like I said, just look at this art. This art is so easily Araki mistaken that so many people think the work that this dude's done is literally Araki. And the fact that this guy, who could have easily made a JoJo fan part and sort of a love letter to this series that he clearly has idolized his artwork off of, decided to do their own story and their own lore and their own world building, to me is really impressive. Because honestly, this probably would have been one of the best fan parts I've ever read, just from the art alone being on that level of quality. But like I said, the fact he decided to do his own thing is personally way better in my opinion. And the lore that is there and the stuff that's already being built up is actually super interesting. Now, I know many people who have read this series or seen this series online have been thinking that a lot of the characters in it look a lot like Stans, and to that extent I have to completely agree, because these designs are super abstract and weird. When it comes to something looking like Araki's style, it just is bound to make sense that these things could be Stans. However, Arc Nemesis takes this in a way that I think is really interesting, having these sort of astral deity-like beings being our main protagonist for the time being. While we haven't had any actual human characters except 2, none of them have been depicted as being incredibly relevant when it comes to actually being a main character or being named at all in the first place, sort of being identifiers for the human race as a whole more so than a character. Meanwhile, the actual story is revolving around these characters who are so far beyond humanity that we get a very fresh perspective that I personally haven't seen in a lot of manga that I've read, unless it's something that is specifically meant to trigger some sort of power-esque fantasy, where a human character becomes this sort of deity-like figure. So honestly, I'm very intrigued to see how the story could go from that aspect alone. Now, I've already seen Araki cover themes like this with characters like Cars, Dio, and even Toru to an extent. These characters who have seemingly no connection to humanity, or specifically have tried to avoid humanity as a whole. So this has me interested how exactly Arc Nemesis is going to handle these aspects. When your story is revolving around these immortal astral deity-esque characters, it only makes sense for them to have these conflicting ideologies on the idea of being immortal, the idea of being greater than humanity, and to see if these characters have conflicting feelings after they interact with humanity has me very interested, and I already think this is going to be set up like this because of a scene we get in chapter 2. And I'm not going to spoil anything like crazy, but I personally really like the idea of where this theme is going, since our protagonist, Rauch, is also seemingly a bad guy, which is another aspect that has me really interested because it seems as though the main character we're following is trying to destroy the whole world. A very interesting perspective, and seeing a story take place from the villain's point of view, and especially a villain who has no care for humanity whatsoever, I think will be personally very interesting based off of the idea I just speculated on about how beings of a higher power are able to seemingly become more empathetic to humans. But speaking on these deity-like figures, this is the way that Arc Nemesis is able to have stand-esque battles in the main narrative, and honestly, the action in this is pretty crazy. Like, we're not getting actual concrete definitions of what the abilities actually are yet at this point, but the fact we're already seeing choreography and paneling that is incredibly similar to Araki's style while also having its own flair is honestly very impressive in my opinion. And all I gotta say is that this deity dude with the cracked face, who's known as the Protector, has some insane paneling, especially with the way they're able to interpret its face being dead and empty while also being the one with the most emotion in the entire fight. The sense of dichotomy here I think is actually really interesting, and we get another character in chapter 2 that also fixates on this idea of being more humane than other deity characters. So all I gotta say is that I think there's a lot of potential with this aspect of their storytelling with the visual imagery they convey. But enough with that pretentious visual imagery talk, because we don't need to deal with that, because Rauch is our main character who we're fixated on, and he's got a mission, and the mission is to destroy the entire world and all of humanity, which has me immediately intrigued, because all I gotta say is if we're somehow following a character that is literally super powerful, has crazy stand powers, and is somehow actually our protagonist, something's gotta go down. Now, whether that's him actually having this change of character or something unexpected happening, maybe with the astronaut that we saw earlier in this very chapter, who's to say? But I think there's a lot of potential with this and the chapters to come. And since this is a monthly release series, all I gotta say is that you should hop in now, since you'll be able to get your dose of JoJo Lands and Rauch at the exact same time. As I previously mentioned, Rauch was the #1 ranked manga debut on Manga Plus last month, and if this chapter brings in a lot of traction as well, this series has genuine potential for becoming an actual manga that is published in Shonen Jump. And I personally think it would be super poetic if a manga that's been inspired by one of Shonen Jump's absolute monsters being placed in the same halls as Hirohiko Araki. I think it would be a great way to not only honor his legacy, but cement how important the series is as a whole to the manga industry. And all the people working in the background of this series are super passionate about it, and said that the art is going to get better and better as it goes on, and honestly, after reading chapter 2, it has. Like, the level up has been absolutely crazy. I know I showed this a bit earlier in the video, but I really want to gush about this because oh my god, this color spread is so actually crazy. I can't even imagine how long this took the color, and knowing that this is going to be a monthly release type of deal, because this is so spot on to Araki's style, while also looking just absolutely incredible. Like, the way that the coloring is used to convey emotion, the way she has the shocked look on her face when she sees that this character has returned to the story, like, oh my god, the use of gray and only having the eyes be blue, it's just so good. Oh my god. I doubt every chapter is going to have a color page, but if they're as good as this one, all I'm going to say is that I'm going to be a really big fan of this going forward, because this just looked absolutely incredible. And obviously these are super early chapters, so it's more likely for them to have them rather than not, but still, if this is sort of a trend that Arc Nemesis starts to do, I'm going to really love this stuff, because this is like chef's kiss. Oh my god, it's amazing. In conclusion, read Rauch. I do not know the pronunciation still, but all I gotta say is that series has a ton of potential, and if you guys want something with a JoJo-esque aesthetic, but doing a unique, actually very interesting twist on this type of story, I definitely recommend it. Seeing a story from this perspective is personally something I find pretty interesting, while also having amazing art and a lot of backing behind it. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did get into the series, tell me what you think of it down below. That's going to be it from me. Hope you enjoyed, and have a good one.